Welcome to the debate. I want you to imagine a manager making a pretty controversial decision. So they decide to bench their perfectly healthy star striker in the final decisive match of the season.
Which sounds insane, right?
Right, it sounds totally crazy. And they aren't doing it based on a gut feeling or, a bad week of training or some disciplinary issue. They are doing it because an algorithm detected a 2-degree change in that player's left knee rotation during a light jog.
Yeah, just 2 degrees.
Exactly. And a machine learning model predicted an 80% chance of a hamstring tear if he plays for more than 20 minutes. So for any students joining us today who are interested in sports innovation, this is the new reality. The game of football is no longer just played on grass.
No, not at all. It's played in the cloud.
Really complex data ecosystem.
That is absolutely the reality of the modern game. I mean, if you conceptually peel back the pitch at any top-tier stadium today, you don't just find soil and roots.
Right?
You find this intricate digital architecture. The sport has basically been entirely translated into a digital language. Every single step, every pass, every acceleration, and, every micro-movement is tracked, categorized, and analyzed.
And that transformation brings us directly to the core disagreement we are exploring today. It's a controversy that sits at the very heart of modern sports innovation.
For sure.
Because while artificial intelligence brings massive analytical power to football, wealthy clubs can afford the absolute best proprietary tools and the premier data scientists. But smaller, less resourced clubs simply can't. So our central question is this: does expensive AI technology create an insurmountable structural advantage for the wealthy giants of the sport? Or can smaller clubs still compete by exploiting AI's limitations and, relying on the fundamental human elements of the game?
Well, I come at it from a different way than you do on this. I will be arguing that the sheer cost of these technologies, ranging from predictive injury models to these advanced tactical simulations, creates a widening, permanent technological gap.
Okay.
It firmly and inevitably tilts the playing field toward wealthy clubs, creating basically a mathematical monopoly on success.
And I will be arguing that smaller clubs can absolutely still compete, and in some ways even find unique advantages.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. They can do this by capitalizing on AI's blind spots. Specifically, algorithmic biases and the profound dangers of over-relying on analytics. By maintaining a strong human core and encouraging on-pitch unpredictability, smaller clubs can thrive while the giants just fall into the trap of managing spreadsheets rather than managing actual human beings.
Look, to really understand the reality of my position, we have to look at the financial architecture of modern football, and specifically what that money actually buys.
Right.
Wealthy clubs aren't just buying better players anymore. They are buying perceptual dominance. They are installing dozens of high-speed optical tracking cameras in their stadiums.
Which cost a fortune.
An absolute fortune. And they outfit their squads with the most advanced GPS trackers and inertial measurement units, or IMUs, embedded right into their training vests.
The sports bras, basically.
Yeah, exactly, the vests they wear under the kits. And what does an IMU actually do? It isn't just tracking how far a player runs. It measures the exact G-force of a foot strike.
Wow.
It tracks the precise angular velocity of a player's hips when they pivot. And then they feed this into computer vision models. These models essentially place a digital 3-dimensional skeleton over the video feed of a player, turning every joint rotation and stride into a measurable mathematical angle.
Okay, I get the scale of it.
So the Giants are playing a highly calculated strategic game based on millions of micro data points. That leaves less resource clubs simply unable to keep up.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. Let's look at what you actually need to manage a football team effectively.
Okay.
I like to think of AI injury prediction like having a microscopic digital sensor on every single cog, belt, and piston inside a car engine.
Right.
It is incredibly detailed, and yes, it costs millions to develop. The human physio, on the other hand, is the experienced mechanic listening to the engine hum. The mechanic might hear a subtle rattle, while the AI detects the exact metal fatigue before the rattle even starts.
Exactly. That's my point.
That sounds like a win for AI, right? But here is the catch. Do you always need a multi-million-dollar sensor network to know when the engine is running too hot?
Well,
A smaller club's dedicated medical and fitness staff can still effectively manage workloads through direct observation, deep communication with the player, and, traditional sports science.
the problem with relying on the mechanic listening to the engine is that human observation is inherently flawed. It's biologically limited.
How so?
Well, the human eye processes visual information at roughly 24 frames per second. A traditional sports scientist might watch a player's gait and think they look perfectly fine. But the high-speed stadium camera is processing hundreds of frames per second.
Right, okay.
It detects that the player is favoring their left leg by a fraction of a degree when landing from a header. The machine learns from millions of previous data points across thousands of players that the specific, invisible to the naked eye pattern precedes a severe muscle tear by 48 hours.
Yeah, but
By the time the human physio sees the player limping, the muscle is already torn.
But you are assuming that the machine's prediction is always perfectly actionable, and that humans act rationally upon it. Let me admit some confusion here regarding the real-world implementation of these predictive models.
Sure.
If a model predicts a 15% higher chance of injury, what do? Do you bench your star player in a relegation battle?
You might have to.
But the human element of risk tolerance, context, and the player's own psychological drive still supersedes the algorithm. The profound danger here is that wealthy giants become so beholden to their predictive models that they bench healthy players out of statistical fear.
Statistical fear?
Yes, they end up disrupting their own momentum. The small club, relying on subjective but deeply contextual human observation, might actually manage the squad with more practical, realistic nuance.
Small club doesn't have the luxury of practical nuance if half of their starting lineup is sitting in the medical room because they couldn't foresee an injury spike.
Well,
The Giants use these models to optimize rest protocols precisely, so their most important assets are available for the critical matches.
okay, but if smaller clubs are struggling to keep players healthy because they lack that micro-level physiological data, that puts an immense amount of pressure on how they acquire talent to fill those gaps.
Absolutely.
They can't rely on predictive health models, so they have to outsmart the giants in the scouting department, and this is precisely where smaller clubs have a massive advantage, because we have to talk about algorithmic bias.
Wait, how does bias give a smaller slurb an advantage?
Because of how machine learning actually works. Machine learning algorithms are trained on massive historical data sets.
Right?
Right now, the deepest, most comprehensive data sets in football are overwhelmingly composed of matches from the top European elite leagues. So the Premier League, La Liga, the Bundesliga.
Naturally, that's where the money is.
Exactly. The AI model learns what a good player looks like, based on the spatial constraints, the pacing, and the tactical structures of those specific elite leagues. But what happens when a giant club runs that exact same algorithm on a player from a lesser documented league?
Like where?
Say, the Brazilian second division, or some highly physical lower-tier European league. The AI fundamentally fails.
Fails is a strong word.
It misinterprets the density of play. It produces imprecise evaluations because the data profile of a brilliant player in a chaotic league doesn't match the elite league template the AI was trained on. Smaller clubs can use this bias to their immense advantage.
I see where you're going.
They can utilize traditional, highly skilled human scouting to find brilliant, undervalued players that the Giants' biased AI completely overlooks.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why.
Go ahead.
You are treating artificial intelligence as a static, rigid entity that cannot be calibrated. Yes, bias absolutely exists in raw, off-the-shelf models, but wealthy clubs aren't using off-the-shelf models.
They're building their own.
Exactly. They employ the absolute best data scientists in the world, people whose entire job is to tweak these algorithms, normalize the data sets, and contextualize the data for different leagues.
Sure, but
Furthermore, the sheer volume of data wealthy clubs are collecting is expanding exponentially. They are tracking passing networks and expected goals models across dozens of leagues worldwide, not just the top 5. Eventually, and very soon, they will have mapped the distinct mathematical profile of every professional league on Earth. The gap isn't closing. The net is just getting wider.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning, because it fundamentally underestimates the complexity of football intelligence. and it overestimates the ability of a metric to capture human nuance.
Nuance like what?
Well, let's look at expected goals, or XG, as a prime example of how these nets operate. An XG model calculates the statistical probability of a shot resulting in a goal. It analyzes the distance from the goal, the angle of the shot, the proximity of defenders, and the type of assist.
It's a mathematically beautiful tool.
It is, but it is fundamentally reductionist. How does an XG model measure the gravity of a superstar player who makes a decoy run that drags two center backs out of position? Creating space for a teammate without ever actually touching the ball. It struggles to quantify that. It struggles to measure the psychological resilience a player shows when their team is down a goal in a hostile away stadium.
Okay, fair point.
When giant clubs systematize their scouting through these massive data nets, they naturally standardize their squads. They filter out unconventional, highly creative talent.
I disagree that they filter it out entirely, but I see your angle.
The smaller club, using human scouts who understand emotional intelligence, grit, and cultural fit, can identify the exact player who might have a mediocre statistical profile but possesses the exact leadership qualities needed to galvanize a locker room.
That's a compelling argument regarding talent acquisition. But we have to consider how AI is fundamentally changing the actual 90 minutes on the pitch.
Okay.
We've explored how teams keep players healthy and how they find them. But what happens when the whistle blows and a poorly resourced small club actually faces a giant?
The David and Goliath scenario?
Exactly. The disparity becomes fiercely tactical. We are seeing the rise of advanced AI-driven match simulations. Giant clubs are using algorithms to rehearse dozens of game scenarios before the match even begins.
Wait, clarify that for me. A football match is not a chess game with fixed paths. The pieces are human beings with free will. How exactly does a manager run a virtual formation against a human opponent?
It works through pattern recognition on a massive superhuman scale.
Okay.
The AI digests thousands of hours of historical video of the smaller club using computer vision. It builds a probabilistic decision tree. It tells the giant club's manager, look, when this smaller team faces a high-pressing formation, their defensive line reliably drifts exactly 5 meters too far apart, around the 70th minute.
Wow. So it spots fatigue?
Yes, directly correlating with a 5% drop in their physical output. Or it notes that a specific fullback, when pressured on his weaker foot near the sideline, has an 85% probability of crossing to a specific zone in the penalty box.
That is highly specific.
Very. The manager then constructs highly specific, data-driven training drills designed to exploit that exact 70th minute drift. Human intuition simply cannot outplan a machine that has quantified millions of historical match events. The giant club steps onto the pitch with a literal mathematical blueprint of the opponent's physiological and tactical weaknesses.
A mathematical blueprint is only as good as the predictability of the subject it is measuring. And this is the absolute crux of my argument.
Let's hear it.
Beneath all the sensors, the IMUs, and the computer vision, the game is still dictated by the skill, emotion, and profound unpredictability of the humans on the pitch. You cannot mathematically simulate the adrenaline of a cup final.
You can't simulate adrenaline, sure.
Right, so if giant clubs chase metrics and treat their tactical setup as an inflexible algorithmic output, they lose the vital element of creativity. They become rigid.
Rigid or precise?
Rigid. Let's look at how spontaneity mathematically breaks an algorithm. Algorithms rely entirely on historical data to predict future outcomes.
That's true.
Suppose the Giants' AI is perfectly trained to defend against the smaller club's standard overlapping fullback. The simulation knows exactly how to counter it. But on match day, the smaller club's manager spontaneously decides to invert that fullback, pulling him into the center of the midfield.
A tactical curveball.
Exactly, a tactical move that player has never executed in his recorded career. The AI has absolutely no training data for this scenario.
The probabilistic decision tree collapses. The model outputs an error, practically speaking, because the Giants' players were trained all week to counter a pattern that no longer exists.
Right. The data is suddenly useless.
A smaller club that empowers its players to make instinctual, spontaneous decisions on the pitch becomes mathematically unpredictable. Human freedom shatters the highly structured AI-predicted patterns of a giant.
Look, I hear the appeal of that narrative. The underdog relying on heart and unpredictability
to slay the data-driven giant. But we have to look at the mechanisms of how these matches actually play out over a grueling 38-game season.
Okay, the long game.
Yes, unpredictability might win you one match. An inverted fullback might confuse an opponent for 45 minutes. But over the course of a season, the probabilistic advantages created by AI absolutely compound.
Compound how?
If an AI system gives a giant club even a 2% advantage in tactical positioning, a 3% advantage in injury reduction through those inertial sensors we discussed, and a 1% advantage in set-piece optimization, those marginal gains mathematically guarantee superiority over time. The smaller club might rely on spontaneity, but spontaneity is, by definition, inconsistent.
It is inconsistent, but it is also deeply adaptive. Let's look at how AI actually learns. It is inherently reactive.
In what way?
Well, if you teach an AI to recognize a specific passing network by feeding it thousands of videos, it learns to counter that specific network. But football is a dynamic, constantly evolving ecosystem. Smaller clubs are historically the engines of tactical innovation exactly because they have to be.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. They invent new ways to play out of pure necessity to survive. By the time the Giants' AI has collected enough high-quality data to accurately model and counter a brand new tactical innovation, the smaller club has already used it to secure crucial points. AI is perpetually reacting to the past. Human ingenuity creates the future.
But the speed at which AI processes the past is accelerating to the point of real-time application. We aren't talking about human analysts spending weeks reviewing footage anymore.
True.
We are talking about edge computing and computer vision identifying a novel tactical shape in real time during the first half, feeding it into a machine learning model on the bench, and producing a statistical counter strategy by halftime.
A halftime adjustment by an algorithm?
Yes, you mentioned the future. And the future promises even deeper integration. We are looking at augmented reality data overlays on the manager's bench. The technological infrastructure required to even participate in this new era of football requires immense capital. You simply cannot innovate tactically if your players are chronically injured because you lack physiological tracking, or if your scouting department is operating purely on instinct while your opponents are using precision engineering to map the globe.
I think we've clearly mapped the parameters of this debate. If we look at the summary of our discussion, my position remains that AI, for all its staggering processing power, has inherent exploitable flaws.
Right.
The elite league bias embedded in machine learning training data, the vulnerabilities of garbage in, garbage out, and the genuine compounding risk of analytical over-reliance leave a very clear path for smaller clubs to navigate. For sure, a club driven by human chemistry, emotional intelligence, and smart traditional scouting can still compete. By remaining spontaneous, adaptive, and deeply cohesive, they can exploit the rigid, metric-obsessed structures of the Giants.
And my summary comes back to the structural, financial reality of the sport. While heart, chemistry, and unpredictability absolutely matter, they are, after all, why we fall in love with the game. The prohibitive cost of high-speed tracking cameras, inertial sensors, computer vision models, and elite data scientists creates a tangible, widening structural inequality.
Yeah.
It fundamentally and permanently advantages the wealthy giants. They are playing a game brilliantly illuminated by millions of data points, while smaller clubs are essentially navigating by the dim light of human intuition.
Yet, I think we have some significant points of convergence here. We both entirely agree that artificial intelligence is fundamentally changing how football is understood, how it is physically prepared for, and how it is executed on the pitch.
Without a doubt.
It is a wildly powerful tool that amplifies decision-making and pushes the boundaries of human performance.
Absolutely. We also agree that despite the millions of data points, the inertial sensors, and the predictive models, the core excitement of the sport still fundamentally belongs to the people on the pitch. A probabilistic model doesn't strike the ball. A human being does.
Exactly. And this leads to an important final reflection. The true future challenge in this field isn't just about designing a slightly smarter algorithm to recognize an off-the-ball run or predict a muscle tear. The real frontier is governance.
Yes, a massive challenge.
It is about how the sport handles this technological explosion. The challenge
is creating standardized regulations for data sharing that protect competitive balance, ensuring that the innovations driving the game forward don't completely destroy the foundation of fair competition among all clubs.
Governance will be absolutely critical. If the technology continues to advance at this pace without standardized, equitable access to the underlying data, the gap will only widen until it becomes completely unbridgeable.
Which brings us back to where we started, peeling back the grass to reveal the massive, complex spreadsheet beneath. The data's there, flowing through every single match, invisible but incredibly powerful.
Very powerful.
The question is whether we use that technology to democratize the sport and elevate the game as a whole, or whether it will forever separate the rich from the poor. That is a question we will leave you to ponder.